for everyone for coming out. Appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll talk about a few things, and then after today, we'll just forget everything that we talked about for the past couple years or weeks, and move on to the new rules. But one other area, really quickly, that I'd like to show you that Dan brought to my attention is just another place to get some more resources on the new rules, if you like. So, just going back to the USGA's homepage, if we go to the rules, and then the rules home, and then resources here, and then before we click on these proposed new rules, that's the actual set of rules. But there's a resources tab here, and they've got some nice guides and charts and things to view. We'll definitely be using these when we start talking about them. But if you have some spare time, or once this golf season gets over, this would be a good place to look to get some information. So really quickly, one thing I think we talked about briefly, but a couple of things that are not going to be covered under the new rules, and one of them not anytime soon. But that first one, the ball in a divot hole, that is not changing. You're still going to have to play the ball as it lies. And as was told us by Thomas Pagel, he doesn't foresee that changing anytime soon. So if you hit it in a divot, suck it up and try to get it out, I guess. But as Jeff was saying, make sure that you fix your divots, because in the playoff at the whatever they call it now, the Career Builders Challenge or whatever it is, and, one of the players, his caddy, filled the divot, and then the other player's ball literally finished like right on top of the divot, or ran past to the divot, and it would have got stuck in the divot had it not.
Would have got stuck in the divot.
Right.
Had not been there.
Well, but on the other hand, if you put the divot back and the guy's ball comes to rest on it, he's got to hit it from there.
That's right.
Whereas if it was loose, it would be a loose impediment. He could move it.
Sure.
There's two sides to
I'd rather hit from on top of the divot than into the hole.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't hit the fairway, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, right.
Fairway's not in your nomenclature.
Right. A couple of things that, or I guess one issue that we talked about at the end of last week that I just want to address. We talked about the OB, and if the ball is on the line, or part of it is overhanging part of the course. So if there's a fat line and the ball is completely on that fat line, since the boundaries of out of bounds go upwards, as long as any part of that ball, if it's on that white line, it's out of bounds. Now, on the flip side of that is if the ball is on the white line and it's resting on the white line, but part of it is overhanging the part of the golf course that's in play, the ball is in bounds.
Don't make fat lines.
Well, the ball is in unless it's all the way out.
Correct.
That's a good way to say it.
Yep.
I mean, that also works for bunkers. It works for water. Except then you got to add or touching a stake if the stake is what marks it. But if you just think of it, it's in unless it's all the way out. You don't need a rule or a subsection or a decision.
Right. All right, and then there's a few other things that we had talked about that we'll hopefully cover today in terms of answers to some questions. But so for today, we're just going to go through a few rules. I kind of picked out a handful that I thought would be most used, and they happen to all be in order in the new rule book. So convenient, right? I guess. But anyway, so the new rule book has 24 rules, so a reduction of 10 rules, and you'll see that there's some that have been kind of combined, and then there's some that have been either eliminated or reduced and put into definitions. When we're reading through these, and one thing that I've noticed is that there's still a lot of questions that aren't addressed, and maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but there's still some things that you would think, okay, there's probably going to be something in the handbook / decisions book about this, but they haven't really sent that out yet. So imagine it kind of reading the current rules, reading just the rules and not the decisions, and kind of having some questions. So if you find yourself in that position, that's the reason why there's still not that resource that might explain some things like, okay, I get what that says, but what happens if if this player does this? So there's going to be gaps in here because we don't have the handbook, and the handbook is not going to be a blank piece of paper. It's not going to be as thick as the current decisions book, but there's going to be some clarifications in there that we don't know what they are at this point in time. So a lot of what what we'll read today again is very similar. It's just different formatting in terms of how it's listed out, or they use different terminology like we talked about last week. So casual water is temporary water. Nearest point of relief is now nearest complete point of relief. So a lot of it is just terminology change and just the way that it looks. Whereas other things are new. And I tried to go through and pick out the new stuff and the old stuff, and I probably missed a few things that are new. So if anyone catches anything, keep me on their toes, please. So we're going to start with bunkers. So a couple things with bunkers. Obviously, this first part here just talks about the actual definition of a bunker, and we discussed one difference last week, that was the soil above where the sand stops and where the grass starts. That is now going to be not in the bunker, whereas in the past it had been. But the other thing that's a little bit different now is that that's new is that the player, so 12.2 is playing a ball in a bunker and touching or removing loose impediments and movable obstructions. So before playing a ball in a bunker, the player may touch or remove loose impediments under Rule 15-1 and movable obstructions under 15-2. We've always been able to move movable obstructions, so a rake or something like that, but now we'll be able to remove loose impediments. So that leaf that's sitting a yard away from your ball, they can now pull that out. Starting in 2019, let me clarify. So for 2018, they still can't do that. But starting in 2019, they'll be able to do that. Now we'll touch on this, I think, in a later rule, but there's still going to be a penalty if they move it and it causes the ball to move. That's not going to go away. But if that pine cone that's in the bunker is right behind their ball and they can move it without the ball moving, they're going to be allowed to do that now.
That's an easy game.
Yeah, I mean, right? So there's still a lot of the same things that we can do when we're in the bunker. So we can't test the area. We can't touch the sand and kind of rake a path or draw a line where we want to hit the sand. That's still not allowed. There's other things that we've always not have been able to do. So this part here talks about when touching the sand does not result in a penalty. So some things like digging in with the feet to take the stance, that's always been the case. Raking or smoothing the bunker to care for the horse, that's the case now. We know we can place clubs in a bunker. I know that's one way if you guys are looking to win a $5 bet with anyone at your club. That's a surefire $5 for you.
Put your whole bag in there.
Yeah, you can lay your whole club in the bunker now and in 2019. In measuring, marking, lifting, replacing, or taking any other actions under the rules, so that's still the case right now. One slight thing that has changed is this resting part that they've added. So resting, we've always been able to stay balanced or prevent from falling, but this new resting term is a little bit different. I think what they mean is that if someone was standing up and they had their club and they were just had their top of their hand on the club touch the sand, that would be okay now in 2019. Whereas now under the current rules, that would be a penalty. The other thing that you'll see on here that's okay is that striking the sand in frustration or anger. So when someone hits a bad shot of the bunker, hits a bad shot and stays in the bunker, if they got angry and they slammed their club in the sand, that was a 2-stroke penalty.
If the ball wasn't out of the bunker.
Exactly. If the ball left the bunker, they could do that.
Sure.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
But now I gotta stop saying now. But in 2019, they'll be able to do that while the ball is still in the bunker and not get penalized. Now, as this, I don't know if it says here, but there can still be penalties to the player if they do it and damage, of course, under a code of conduct or basically where the committee would come in and say, no, you can't do that. That was bad sportsmanship, for a lack of better term.
How about on the face of a bunker and they have a rake in there and the ball comes in the bunker, lining up against the rake, and that's preventing it from coming down to the bottom of the bunker? What's the rule there?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there, what's recommended is that you get a tee or a coin or something and mark the ball, and then
You try to replace it?
No, well, first you'd move the rake, right? And then if the ball moved, then you try to put the ball back where it was, and then if you couldn't, you just keep trying to find that nearest point possible
Until it's down the bottom?
where it will stay.
Until it stays. Okay.
Yeah, and it could
You don't have to drop it, you just try to place it.
place it. Yeah,
It doesn't have to go straight to the bottom. It can go to the side as well.
Okay.
right.
It just
Okay.
has to be a point at which it'll come to rest.
And that's a good point too, and that's why we.
You can't do this with it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
No,
You can't
you
push down.
can't
twist
push
it,
down on the
right,
ball.
Right. And so really the bad part about that rule, and it's not so much when the ball's on the up face or whatever you want to call it. It's when it's on a downhill slope and then there's nowhere.
In the back of the bunker.
Yeah, exactly. In the back of the bunker where you can't find a place that's not closer to the hole, and then in that case, the player has to actually take a penalty and take it out of the bunker.
Oh, really?
And so that's why we always encourage players to keep the rakes out of the bunker so that doesn't happen. Or if they are in the bunker, put them farther away from the edges and flat surfaces so we don't run into that situation.
So number 2, in touching where it says resting, staying balanced, that's new because we're preventing a fall. That's always been in the rules, right?
Exactly,
So if
yeah.
I use my club in the bunker to stop myself from falling, that's not a penalty right now.
Right.
But if I'm just standing there in 2019 with my club on the ground, just standing there, it's no longer a penalty.
Correct.
My understanding of that was it was meant to be inadvertent, not deliberate.
Right. Well, yeah. I think all these actions are what they're saying. That if you're using it to test the service or to find out some information, then yes,
That's a deliberate act.
It is a penalty. Right. Exactly. But if it's just casual and you're just sitting there, you're like, oh crap, no. I mean that's usually when it happens. But yeah, if you were doing it to gauge how wet the sand was or how deep it was, that's a different story.
Okay.
And you're gonna determine that how.
Yeah.
Carefully.
I don't, yeah, exactly.
Asking the player.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would ask the player, but you be careful how you want to ask that question because you wouldn't want to lead with this is going to be a penalty. If you did this, you what happened there? Tell me what happened there.
If you observe it, I think you just say, excuse me, you're leaning out your club in the sand.
Right. Sure. All right, and then lastly, and this is pretty much the same as well. That there's no restrictions once the ball is played out of the bunker, so the player can smooth sand and touch the sand and take practice swings. Once the ball's out, that's true to this day and will continue to be.
But that second bullet point says you can still clean the bunker once you've taken a stroke, even though the ball hasn't left the bunker, if it rolls back in.
This is even true.
Okay, so yeah, so that might. I mean, I know if the ball goes OB, you can.
You could always rate the
rate
bunker.
it, right? But,
Yep.
but I guess if
Yep.
it was, let's say it was coming out and you saw it going back. By the way, you're reading this that you think you could break it really.
Well, it says right there, no restriction once the ball's out of bounds. Once the ball's been played, it's no longer in the bunker. There's no restriction to what you can do playing out of the bunker. But it says this is even true when the ball rolls back into the bunker.
Keyword is later, I think.
Right.
Right.
So now you've made your stroke and the ball rolls back in the bunker.
5 seconds.
I would bet that they have some clarification in whatever is going to be rule.
You mean like
Rule 1-2.
the bunker there, and what was that, 15 or 16?
That's a decision.
The one on the right-hand side?
Where?
At that career builder?
Oh.
Oh, that 9 or 10 foot deep bunker?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that they might have something specific, not in this bunker rule, that might say you can't improve your area of intended play when the ball's still in motion. I don't know. I mean, you would think that they would have something listed here, but it might be covered in
Another rule.
yeah, exactly. And I haven't read through all of them, so I
Carrying
can't
for
tell
the
you.
course, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like some kind of deep bunker, something like that, the ball goes out and you start raking and then all of a sudden it rolls back in because of the slope and you thought it was out.
Yeah.
Something like that, I think
Right.
that's what they mean.
Right.
Well, and even if you didn't think it was out, you hit a bad shot, and you can see it coming down, and you start kicking with your feet to improve your divot. Is that gonna be a penalty, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think intent probably matters here, right? I mean, if it's
I would
just
think.
if it's done to improve your lie, I think it'd be a penalty. If it's just they hit a bad shot and they chunked it and it was rolling back and it slammed the club. I mean, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
if that
It
was.
says here, if they slam their club and anchor, it doesn't make any difference. Don't make
Okay.
all lights for that.
So what if right away your caddy starts to rake it?
Sure.
Because that happens a lot. You take a shot
Caddies,
and the shot's
That's right.
hit and immediately the caddy
He has a rake.
starts to rake it.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I think the rules generally, make the assumption that if
You get somebody's
the
bag
caddy
at the top of the bunker.
violates the rule,
Just don't like
you're on the
You
hook
get
for it.
penalized for the kid.
So,
Rubber the green, it's coming back at you.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that one needs a little bit more clarification. in
You
terms
see that a lot.
Yeah.
A shot and caddy
of
is
right away.
immediately raking it.
Yep. And they're doing a good job too, because if not, they get fined. So, which is interesting, but I mean, makes sense. So. All right. Special rules for relief for a ball in a bunker. So when a ball is in a bunker, special relief rules may apply in these situations. So interference from an abnormal course condition. So that's still the same today, right? We have casual water in 2018, temporary water in 2019 in a bunker. We're still going to get relief from that. If we have interference by a dangerous animal situation, so if we have fire ants in a bunker or a snake in a bunker or something like that, we would get relief from that. The unplayable ball, rule 19.3. So this one's on page, I'm gonna go to page 103 here to look at this one. Because this one is a change, I believe.
Well, you can't say it was a very ball and playable anywhere.
Anywhere except a hazard, water hazard.
Penalty area.
So this one,
One
right.
stroke.
So this one talks about relief options for non-playable in a bunker, and we've always been able to do this, and we've been restricted on where we can take our unplayable relief. So that's still going to be the case. The player may take unplayable ball relief for one penalty stroke under any of the options in Rule 19.2, except that the ball must be dropped in and played from a relief area in the bunker if the player takes either back on a line relief, which is a new terminology, or lateral relief, which is also a new terminology. They say that back on a line relief is
It's on
that
the line with the flag.
exactly the flag and where the ball was on that line back as far as you can go, but it has to stay inside the bunker. And then the lateral relief option, which may end up just being 2 club lengths because they're not going to do the 80 inches, or at least that's what we've been told. So that one may end up just being 2 club length relief or whatever, but that's what they mean when they say lateral relief. And then the extra option, additionally, you can go back to where you last played from, right? And that's just a one-stroke penalty. You can do that
It's your
today.
stroke and distance.
Your stroking distance option. But the other thing you can do is that for a total of 2 penalty strokes, you can play the original ball or the substituted ball from outside the bunker using the back on a line relief procedure, but you go outside the bunker and you can drop anywhere on that line. So that would be basically where the ball was, the flag, and that line as far back as you want. So really the way to kind of think about it is that it's an unplayable like any other unplayable on the golf course. But if they take it out of the bunker, it's going to be 2 strokes.
Kyle,
Yes.
is that official terminology now back on a line relief procedure?
I mean, we talked about this last week. I mean, if you're explaining it to 80% of our players, I think it's a great idea to use that because it makes more sense. It's going to be what is going to be used next year and going forward. But like I forget, I think it was Jim or Lee said. I mean, the other thing we want to be careful about is using that and then not having it in the current rule book to go and say, here's what it is. So I think it really just depends on the situation. But I would say from my perspective, if I was running a junior tournament and I know that the juniors, I mean, they don't know much about the rules, and that's just because they haven't played as much golf as the rest of us. I don't have any issue with you using that because it makes a lot more sense than trying to explain what it is. I mean, I guess you're still going to have to explain it, but until you're told otherwise, I guess.
Well, it's disappointing because even
Back on a line.
Yeah. Yeah.
even in the USGA videos right now, they can refer to it as the flag line.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Make up your
flag line
mind.
back, I think is
Make
what
up your
they call it,
mind,
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh.
Well, the flag line just came in last year.
Right.
That was,
And it's not official, but
nope.
Is it descriptive?
Yeah. But it's always been, you can take it back in line with the point where the ball lies and the flag.
And that always confused people
You know?
because they thought they could go this way instead of this way.
Right. Right.
Depending on where the flag.
Yeah, they always thought it was from where they entered the hazard or the bunker or whatever, right?
The line of play.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Line of flight doesn't mean anything anyway.
Right.
And the only thing line of flight does is it went over the margin of the hazard here.
Right.
That's where you entered.
Not,
That doesn't help your relief.
not
It's
100
just-
yards up there.
That's where you were foolish enough to.
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
That looks kind of punitive. Take that second stroke out of the bunker.
Well, think about like
What?
the road hole at St. Andrews, where
17?
you're right up against the face of that thing, and
Yeah.
you got no way to get it out.
That's
Or
why they hit
can
it
you
against the
even hit it
wall.
out?
Hit it into the wall.
Hit it, hit it side,
Yeah.
You could be in there for 2 or 3 more shots where 2-stroke penalty gets you out.
days.
I think the other thing
Arcadia, number 10 at Arcadia,
Yeah.
that's 8 or 10 feet deep.
Well, I agree with
the
some
other
of
thing
that.
is that we tend to look at things from a tournament player's standpoint, right? Well, the 15 handicapper, when they get in the bunker, it's just like they're picking it up and throwing it out anyways. Yeah, exactly. So for them having this option is like the best news since sliced bread.
That's what make my wife's handicap come down.
Yeah. Some of them look like an army marching through the sand. They swing and repeat, just go one, swing again. I suppose.
All right, rule 13, putting green, the putting greens. It's interesting here. They have at the beginning. I didn't go over this for the 12, but they have this for every rule. The purpose of the rule. So it's kind of basic, but it's interesting to have this. So in this one, you can see here, rule 13 is a specific rule for putting green because they're specifically prepared for playing the ball along the ground. Greens have certain different rules than for other parts of the course, such as allowing cleaning of the ball, repair of damage, and removal of sand and loose soil. There is also no penalty for accidentally removing a ball or a ball marker on the green. So it's really just a kind of a recap of key definitions that apply to this, but it's interesting they put that at the very beginning.
I think the criticism under the old rules was that to be good at them, you essentially had to memorize the book. And if you talk to somebody like Mark Wilson, you could see his mind sort of like a brick wall, finding the brick, taking it out, and finding what was inside it.
Right.
This is the logic. So that if you've got the logic, you've got a better chance of being able to figure it out without the rote memorization of 560 pages of rules and decisions.
But again, you're making a critical assumption that players are going to read the damn thing.
Well, we're going to read them.
Well, we are, yes. But we know the players don't read them now.
All right. So in terms of marking, lifting, and cleaning, so here you can see they've kind of combined cleaning the ball into this rule. So cleaning the ball used to be its own rule. Now it's kind of combined into in what you'd say was Rule 20 before. So this really hasn't changed. You know, if you mark the ball, you need to put a mark on, and it needs to be replaced. If you don't, there's going to be a penalty. You know, the one exception to that is that you're not allowed to lift a ball if there's another ball that's in motion that might influence that ball that's in motion. So if you saw a ball coming towards your ball on the putting green, you couldn't just mark your ball and get it out of the way. You just kind of have to let it go at that point. One of the other changes here is the improvements that are allowed on the putting green. So we've always been able to repair certain damage, but they've kind of expanded the damage that's going to be allowed to be repaired. So we've always been able to be able to fix our divots, not divots, ball marks, and then remove sand or loose soil. That was one thing we talked about last week in the definitions. It is in here. You can remove sand and loose soil from the putting green, so that's not going to change from now until 2018. That will be the same. Now the new area is this damage on the putting green. So the damage on the putting green includes all types of damage except aeration holes, natural defects of the ground surface, or natural wear of the hole. So common examples of damage caused by players, such as ball marks, spike marks, and other shoe damage and scrapes, or indentations caused by the equipment or a flagstick. So before you weren't able to fix spike marks, now you'll be able to. So there's been, I think Justin Thomas has been the most critical about this, but now essentially you'll be able to groom the ball right into the hole and be able to pat it down. Now it does say here that you can see it where it says handbook there, guidance on what is unreasonable delay when repairing damage on the putting green and how to apply a basic play policy to such repairs. So the committee is going to be in charge of determining how much time they have to actually groom their way to prepare the way to the hole, so to speak. But it will definitely be interesting to see if people take a little bit longer time to do that. I mean, I'm sure that if I was playing competitively, I would definitely take more time if I was allowed to do that now. But the one, the other thing that kind of goes against it is that before you had to look at it and then you'd ask your person in your group, is this a ball marker? Is this that? And then so now we're just getting rid of that. You just go up and fix it. You don't have to worry if it's a spike mark or not. So there is going to be some time saved in this, but it's just how much time are people going to spend making sure everything's perfect. And this is not going to come into play at a lot of our tournaments. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of them, because just the level of play. I mean, whether if I'm playing in a net tournament, I mean I have a hard enough time getting my ball in line anyway. So whether it's perfect or bumpy, it doesn't really make a difference to me. I mean, maybe the bump might actually put it back on line for me, so I'd probably be better just to leave it there. But for our Michigan Amateur and our high level events, this is something that we'll have to, we're going to have to watch out for and have some type of policy to enforce.
But it does say there's guidance on unreasonable delay when they
Right.
damage.
Right.
But hopefully people are doing it while one person's lining up, you know, if you think about what's supposed to start happening, trying to speed up that. Okay, so what about the old question that's in the book of the acorn that's embedded into the ground?
Because
You're gonna flip that out, or you can just step on it?
Outside influences.
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
Will you be able to dig that out and repair it?
I don't
or-
think that, I mean, I guess it does say, or indentations caused, well, no, but that says caused by equipment or flag stick. So I would say with that one, you still gonna have to putt through. So, you know, and then the other things that have always been in there, hole plugs, turf plugs, or seams of cut turf and scrapes or indentations from maintenance tools or vehicles. And then the other thing that's now in the rules that is a local rule is animal tracks or
Outside
hoof
influence.
prints. That's been before you've been able to put a local rule to allow relief from that. Now it's just part of the rules.
Outside influence.
Well, that's my question.
It's a little argument there.
You know, what if it's gone and there's the indentation?
I think
Well,
just
just
think we
basically,
fix
you
that.
can say you can fix
I
it.
think outside influence is a definition, right? So let me let's pull that one up. Or you want to pull that up, Dan, and see them? I'm pretty sure that they talked about some type of. I think it has to be lifelike form, or I don't know what they use, but
Any of these people or things that can affect what happens to the ball at rest of motion, any person, including other players, caddy, any animal, and any natural or artificial object or anything else, including another ball in motion after a stroke.
Well, that's a
Any
natural object.
natural or artificial object.
So that's a
I would
natural
say you can
object.
move that.
The acorn's not artificial.
It's not just natural.
No, but it's natural.
Oh, did it say that?
Natural or
Yes,
Oh,
actually,
Natural or
Any natural or artificial object.
I've noticed in a few of the tournaments where the greens are watered or, heavy rains, 10 groups go through and right around the hole with the soft spikes. It's
up.
all ripped up. I mean, how far can you go as far as repairing? I mean, you could almost build a tunnel, couldn't you, with
Call the greenskeeper, have a bit of rolling.
As long as it's not undue delay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
well, in a minute, I can sit there with
we're
my
gonna have
feet
to.
and calm down and almost make a little trough.
It's gonna be tamped down.
I mean, I think they're, yeah.
Tamped down as
That was one of the things that Justin Thomas said that people are going to basically create a runway to the hole. I mean, I think that you could on a short putt because you're going to have the time, but if you have a 20-footer, I mean, that would probably take you too long.
And I
So,
see some of these net tournaments where the guy thinks he's a scratch golfer and he's a 22 and he's got a 40-foot putt. He'll be there for 3 minutes looking for every little indentation or muck.
Sure,
So,
sure. I think that's something that we're going to have to define in
like a
case of play policy.
we got a year to do.
Does the
Don't volunteer
current
for next one.
rules, one on exerting influence on the ball, continue into the new rules?
I don't know if it's in there under that current.
Because if it's there, that would answer it. If you ask the player what they're doing,
Right.
or if it's obvious what they're doing, you say, look, there's a rule that says you can't use an outside influence to help you.
Yeah, I think even if it's not directly in there in terms of the same thing, the principle behind that is definitely going to be in there because that's kind of your whole intent principle, so to speak, is covered under that.
We have to rely on fellow competitors too, to some extent.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's going to be the first line.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they'll jump in and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Or hey,
There's not likely to be an official there
Right.
watching. It's
Yeah.
going to be the competitors that
right,
stop them or ask the question.
right.
As a practical matter, Lee, yeah, we don't get assigned to the green unless we're walking with the group in match play.
All right, so here, just as we talked about a little bit earlier, but removal of sand and loose soil. So sand and loose soil on the putting green, but not elsewhere on the course may be removed without penalty. So nothing's changed there. One other thing here, so when the ball or the ball marker moves in the putting green, no penalty for accidentally causing a ball to move. So as we know, this is a local rule now that was instituted in 2017, and now this is just putting it in the rules. So it will not be a local rule; it will just be part of the rules. And one thing that has changed is when it comes to when to replace the ball moved by natural forces. So if natural forces, which are things like wind or gravity, cause a player's ball on the putting green to move, where the player must play from next depends on whether the ball has already been lifted from and replaced on its original spot. So if the ball has already been lifted and replaced, the ball must be replaced on its original spot, which if it's not known must be estimated, even though it was moved by natural forces and not by the player, the opponent, or an outside influence. So this was in reaction to, I think, what happened to Brooks Koepka at the Masters. I think it was in 2015. But basically, if I remember correctly, on the 15th hole, he hit the green in 2, went up there and marked his ball, and then he put his ball back down because he was like 50 feet from the hole, and then he picked up his mark and walked around the other side of the hole. And when he was doing that, his ball rolled into Ray's Creek or whatever that one is. So under the current rules, he had to take relief from a water hazard, which exactly, he had to go the other side because he hadn't played a shot from when he was on the ring, so he couldn't. So he did that, and whatever. So in that case, you would just put it back where the ball was. But if the ball had not been lifted in place, let's say that when Brooks was walking up to the green, his ball starts rolling back in the water. That one he has to play from the water. So the ball must be played as it lies.
Or if another ball hit it, right? If somebody hit their shot in and hit his ball at rest,
He gets to replace his ball.
Yeah, still right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's on the green or in the fairway.
right?
All right, here, and this is always this is still the same, but during a round, a player may not deliberately take any of these actions to test any putting green. So you can't roll ball practice other than what's allowed in the rules. So be between the play of 2 holes, or on the putting green of the hole, or on any practice putting greens. So Mike, you might say grooming or kind of creating your runway might be roughing the surface or testing the surface.
No, if I wanted to test it, I'd be going like this and let's see which way the grain's going.
Sure.
I'd run the hole.
Sure.
To make my trough.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gonna happen. Guys gonna be pounding down around that green, around the hole.
Sure.
Line it with bird seed.
Yeah. I'm not a proponent of that rule.
Play the course as you find it, except on the putting green.
All right, this next one here, relief from wrong putting green. So no changes here. You need to take relief from the wrong putting green, and the same as it is today. I think one of the questions from last week was about if a player played a ball from an environmentally sensitive area. I think that was asked. I'm not sure if it was, but my recollection is it was. Maybe.
Making the stuff up.
I think so. But basically, the principle applies the same here. So if a player was to hit the ball on the wrong putting green or play a ball from a environmentally sensitive area, or in 2019 the no play zone, they would just get a 2-stroke penalty and then have to take proper. Actually, no, they wouldn't have to take proper leave and they just play it. So it's just a 2-stroke penalty. And then what you can kind of see here, this is how they set up their relief structure and how they kind of lay it out. So this may change. Obviously, it's going to change on the area where they drop, but they're still going to list out the reference point. So whether it's the nearest point of complete relief, or it could be where you last played from or something along those lines. But then you also see the size of the relief. So whether it's 1 and 2 club length or something else, and then the limitations on where you can go. So in this case here, for a wrong putting green, it must be in the general area, which we know is any part of the golf course except for teeing area, the hazards. I guess technically in 2019 terms, the penalty area and the bunkers, and then this last one,
The putting green. that
putting
you're
green,
doing.
putting green of the hole being played. Yep. And then it also must not be near the hole, then the reference point, and then you must have complete relief from all interference from a wrong putting green.
So if your ball is like in the middle of the playing green, you can take it to either side. It's not like you're.
It's exactly like nearest point, which is relief.
Oh,
So
okay.
depending on what hand you are, that would determine.
Kyle, is there a
Well, it says-
specific, sorry, Patty. Is there a specific change in what constitutes relief from a wrong putting green?
No. It's still the exact same.
But it always included your intended stance?
To my knowledge, I mean,
It says, service point of complete relief.
I'm pretty sure.
It is the estimated point in the required area of the course, nearest to where the ball came to rest, but not near the hole, where the condition or situation does not interfere with the stroke the player would have made, including choice of club, stance, swing, and line of play from ball's original spot, in condition or situation did not exist. Although the nearest point of complete relief is based on how the stroke would be made, in taking relief, the player need not actually simulate the stroke.
Dan's question, I think, is,
Yeah,
can you drop onto the fringe and play your
Yeah,
ball
I
from the fringe of a wrong green while you're standing on the green?
I would say, no, that's not complete relief, because you
Now-
cannot play from the.
Now,
According to this, but now you can do it, can't you? If my ball's on the fringe, I don't get relief from my stance on the wrong green, right?
that's what I thought.
You do not.
Current.
Okay, so interference by a wrong, I'm reading the current rules.
Current rule.
Interference by a wrong putting green occurs when a ball is on the wrong putting green. Interference to the player's stance or the area of his intended swing
If you're
is
standing on
not of itself interference out of the school.
Right,
Okay.
so you can,
Just the ball.
But
you can stand on the green, but the ball head can't be on the green.
right,
If the
but
ball-
I believe that the committee can make a local rule saying that they would.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I think it's under 33-833 local rule.
Right.
In 2019, you have to take relief from a wrong putting green if the lie of your ball interferes with your stance or your intended swing. That is new.
Right, but it also says here, you can make a local rule that says you can take, your stance can be on the putting.
Right. So I think Dan, you're right. Is that they've changed it so that in the past you've been able, it's kind of been the default to not include stance interference or area of intended swing, whereas now that's included, but you're still able to local it out where you can stand on the green and hit the shot.
Yeah.
But it's just switched it. So that's a good
Yeah,
catch there.
33-833 is just, it says that, they can move you to the apron.
Right.
That's it. They can make a local rule prohibiting you from using the apron at all and taking the nearest point of relief because it says it was damaging the apron itself too severely. So apparently their example is one where the greens are in close proximity and a number of shots are hitting it. And taking relief, they're doing too much damage to the apron, so they tell you, yes, you can make a local rule to tell you
That's
can't hit.
now it says.
Yes. Yeah, 33-833. It's a decision. 33-8/33.
And then as we'll see in all these relief options that are in the rules now, just under notes, I believe. But at any time where relief is clearly unreasonable, the relief will not be allowed. So that's still the case today. So if someone were to take a stance that's abnormal or a direction of play that's unreasonable given the situation, they will not get relief. Yeah.
The lightning rod comes down the trunk of a tree and the ball is right in the crotch next to the, no relief.
Right, exactly. Yep. Even if they're standing on a cart path, right? So,
It
Right.
depends on the direction you want to hit the shot, but you have to make that determination beforehand. The cart path can be an impediment to the direction of play, in which case you get relief for the path. And then doing so, the movement of the ball out of that tree.
right.
I had that unfortunately at Michigan State last year.
If you're lodged in a tree, I mean, I would say that it would be unreasonable to play a shot in a tree unless it's just, sitting up perfectly where it's, you could just hit it out of there. But
It was in a crotch of two roots on the left-hand side of the green on 17 there.
yeah,
4 acres.
yeah, that one you could,
And you could play, he could have played it backwards, but when I asked him which way he wanted to play it, he wanted to play it at the stick from where he was. You get no relief.
Right.
Want to go backwards and you got to stand on that path. In that case, it would give you relief to do that, but I can't tell you that.
right.
Well, and it depends on the player's skill. Frank and I were talking about rules school. Rules school has a video where the player is getting relief from underneath a cactus because he's gonna make that swing underneath the cactus, except the sprinkler head is interfering. So he wants really, come on, you can't make that swing, underneath that cactus. Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so they
I can
give
try.
relief. Now in our events,
Yeah.
it might not be, but
Sergio does it.
depends on.
Yeah, you could try it. It depends on their level of skill. But I remember that case there in particular, both the player and the father chewed me out and said I was wrong. They talked to Mick, they talked to everybody, and the next day the father came back and apologized to me. After he read the rule and said, yeah, that's an exception. You can't do that unless he tells you he wants to play that. I said, that's right. I said, but I can't tell him that.
Yeah, and I think
Even advice.
a good question to ask, and I think this was something that someone told me, because I obviously didn't come up with myself, but the question to ask is, how would you play the shot if the cart path wasn't there? And if the cart path wasn't there, would you play it backwards? And probably if they say no relief. So that's always the key question to ask is if that thing that's causing interference, if it wasn't there, how would you play the shot?
He was just angry. He was laying 2 flag high and couldn't get it to stick.
Sure.
And you hit it there too.
I'm sorry?
And you hit it there.
It was my fault. I kicked it, pushed it over in the crotch of that tree.
All right, next rule here, the flag stick. Or I guess not next rule, it's next part of the rule here. We're still talking about putting green. So again, a key thing to point out here is the second sentence of the green is that the player may leave the flag stick in the hole or have it attended or removed, but must decide before making a stroke. So this is a change, and now currently the player has the option to leave the flag stick but faces a penalty if it hits it while they're on the green. Under the new rules, the players will be allowed to leave the flag stick in the hole, but they need to decide if they're going to have it in there or have it attended or pulled out before they make their stroke.
It's pretty good. They made that in reference to Medina with a flag attached instead of using wicker baskets.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Very.
Marion?
The old definition has the word bunting in it. And when I was first reading, I had no idea what bunting was. So I learned it that it
Oh,
was
yeah.
flag, but so now they're robbing everyone of learning what bunting means. But I guess that's okay. I was glad I haven't. So.
You're kneeling in the national anthem too.
Huh? No, I don't do that. But all right, so let's just talk through this a little bit here. So when we're talking about the meaning of the flag stick, we can skip that. It's pretty much the same. Everyone knows what a flag stick is. The unintended flag stick left in the hole. So there's no need to have a flag stick attended or removed. The unintended flag stick may be left in the hole when a player makes any stroke, even from the putting green. So the reason that they've done this is because it's been, I don't want to say proven, but the research shows that this helps speed up play. Because if you're playing and especially if you're playing with 2 people or even 3 people, sometimes it's not practical to go all the way up to the green, get to the hole, pull out the flag, and then walk all the way back and putt. Now you can just, you can hit your 40 or 50 footer, and if it hits the flag, no big deal.
It's always nice to have a backstop.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see what our players decide to do. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of the higher level players will still want that flag out, and they'll still attend it. But I think some of the, not great players. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I think they'll just.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. No, I really don't, because I kind of put myself in that category. As well.
Players of lesser skill.
I remember back, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, there was an article in Golf Digest or one of those magazines that said that the ball goes in the hole when you're putting from off the green, that there was a 25% advantage to have the flagstick in the hole for it to go in when you're putting from off the green. Yeah. So why wouldn't it still be on the green?
Right.
And it can work both ways. We've all seen that.
Sure.
Oh yeah, you can hit that thing and carry them off forever.
I hit it hard enough to carry it off that stick, it wouldn't have stayed in the hole anyway.
Exactly, but the problem is if we hit it hard enough that it hits that stick and it doesn't stop and carries off, you may be in worse shape.
But one thing that hasn't changed is this point about the position of the flag stick. So before making a stroke with the unintended flag stick, the player may leave the flag stick as it is, or they can center the flag stick in the hole. This is the same today. However, they can't deliberately try to angle the flag to give themselves an advantage. So that's still the same today, and that won't change in 2019. Again, and then there is no penalty if the ball, if the player's ball in motion hits an unintended flag stick in the hole. And then the other thing, I think we'll get to it a little bit. Wait for that. All right, so next, the attended or removed flag stick. So there is a little bit of a change here too. So if the flag stick is attended, when the player makes a stroke, a flag stick is attended if when the player makes a stroke, any person is touching the flag stick in the hole or standing close enough to touch it. I believe now it's within an arm's length, is technically how they define it. But now it's, I guess, close enough to touch it. I guess that's still within arm's length. It's just a different way of saying it, I guess. But so, and then the player can also hold the flag stick above the hole to show where the hole is. The flag stick may be attended or removed by anyone the player authorizes. And the player has authorized attendance if before the stroke is made, the player asks or directs someone to attend or remove the flag stick. The player's caddy attends or removes the flag stick even if the player is not aware of it, and that the player knows the flag stick has been removed or is being attended and does not object to it. So these are all same as it is today. However, unauthorized attendance or removal when a player is not authorized, or when not authorized by the player, an opponent in match play or another player in stroke play or their caddies must not deliberately attend or remove the flag stick to affect where the player's ball might come to rest. So again, there's you guys may recall from last year we had a video we were talking about the flag stick where Boo Weekly was playing with someone and someone had a 50-foot putt there on the green and it looked like it was going to hit the flag and Boo Weekly ran out and grabbed the flag and pulled it out of the hole. Well, even under the new rules, Boo is still going to get penalized. So for being a nice guy. So, but now there's no penalty for having hit the flag. So there should be no reason for Boo to run up there and grab it, unless he just does it because he's Boo. Who knows? If the player doesn't know the rules and they're still playing with the old ones, they might do that, and it would still be a penalty.
Did you ever hear the story about him fighting the chimpanzee?
Yeah.
One punch and he was out.
Chimpanzee
He went to a fair.
You know,
and
I continue to see a reference here to a general penalty,
never
but I
saw it.
haven't seen
Woke up in the back.
a general penalty statement.
Yeah, so, that's in the definition, so Dan, you
It's
want
two strokes.
yeah, it's basically just another way of saying it's a two-stroke penalty and stroke play and,
Well, but
loss of hole and match play. But let's read the definition.
we also have one-stroke penalties, so.
Says general penalty, loss of hole in match play or two penalty strokes in stroke play.
Okay, so what is the penalty called if it's only one stroke?
They'll reference
One-stroke
it as
penalty?
just a one-stroke penalty.
One-stroke penalty.
Yeah.
Still the breach of the penalty, but that's what the general penalty is for that rule.
So by definition, general
No,
penalty
no.
is still,
It's
it's just one or two
Any
strokes.
any
No,
time
general
that it
penalty.
says general penalty, it will be two strokes or loss of hole. And then if it's less than that, then it will say one-stroke penalty.
Kyle, as a practical matter, that takes out all the decisions on, did you authorize your fellow competitor to tend the flag when you were hitting out of the bunker, when you were off the green?
Right.
Whole list of decisions.
Right. I mean, we still have to know if it was tended or not, right? I mean, there's still we still need to determine if the attendance was authorized or not, because it determines if there's a penalty if someone that's unauthorized does something to it. But we don't need to worry about, you know, whether it's tended or not, because there's not as many issues that can come up, because now if it hits someone that's attending the flag, now, I mean, we'll see it in a little bit, but now it's just kind of played as it lies. Sorry, not now. In 2019, it's played as it lies, whereas now there's a penalty. So it's a little bit simpler.
Okay, it's coming up. Okay,
I believe so, if I remember correctly.
thank you, sir.
So here, D, so ball hits attended or removed flag stick or person attending it. So the ball accidentally hits or hits attendant or flag stick. The player's ball in motion after a stroke accidentally hits an attended or removed flag stick or the person attending it, there is no penalty, and the ball must be played as it lies. So one common thing that you see is sometimes the flag will get laid on the ground and the ball will start going towards it, and someone will move it while the ball in motion. That's a penalty now. But under the current or under the 2019 rules, there would be no incentive for that person to move that flag stick. And I believe it would still be a penalty if they move the flag stick. But now they shouldn't
Oh,
have
they
to.
changed that.
Oh, they changed that. because
You
move
can
your
run
foot-
over and grab the flag stick so somebody doesn't hit it. That's
Or your
not a
bag.
penalty anymore.
If your bag is laying there, you see this ball is going, because you can move it now. Without
That was a
penalty.
couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I could be getting my years. I'm probably getting my.
yeah, I was thinking about that. when you
Yeah,
asked
because that
about
was the one thing
pulling
that
the
changed,
flag
that
out of the
if you
hole.
laid it down,
Mhm.
and you went over and picked it up, it used to be a penalty, and then a couple of years ago they changed it so that you could go pick it
Well, you could do it on the flag, but not on the equipment.
up. I don't know about equipment, I was just talking
That
about
was
flag.
both.
But if you move the equipment, it was a penalty, but not the flag.
Not sure.
Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't say in here, so yeah, you're right. So under 17-3, the ball striking the flag stick or attended. So the player's ball must not strike the flag stick when it is attended, removed, or held up. The person attending or holding up the flag stick or anything carried by him, with a flag stick in the hole unattended when the stroke has been made on the putting green. Exception when the flag stick is attended, removed, or held up without the player's authority. So, as I said, if it's not attended or removed or held up, wait, hold on.
There was an exception.
There's,
It says the player's ball must not strike the flag stick when it is attended.
That would be a gain advantage.
Right, but they
Can't do
changed
that.
it, you could move
Put
it.
behind, right?
Current rule 19, ball in motion deflected.
While moving it, is deflected.
If you've removed the flag stick and laid it on the green,
yes.
it's an obstruction,
Mhm.
correct? Okay, so the 19.1b says a player's ball in motion after a stroke on the putting green is deflected or stopped by an outside agency. The stroke is canceled.
That's
You used to be, if you hit the flag stick, which is an outside agency, you get a penalty.
17-3/3 is a ball strikes flag stick lying on the ground.
17?
Yeah, 17-3/3, page 265.
Oh, so
Right?
Right, yep.
decision?
It says generally the player's ball must not strike the flag stick when removed from the hole.
right, but that's not what we're saying.
So
We're
what is,
saying is that
what is the
penalty
rule?
to go and pick it up and move it out of the way.
B and C, there's no penalty incurred. The player plays the second shot for the ball strike. That doesn't show anything lying down. This is on A, there is a penalty, and on B and C, there is none.
I think I remember that change and then
Yeah.
what separates a flag stick from anything else? If you left a golf club lying on the green and you saw the ball rolling toward it, you could pick, because it's your equipment, you could pick that up without a problem. If you were adult and left your golf bag on the green, you could pick it up. So if the flag stick is there, why shouldn't you be able to pick it up the same way you could the other two?
Well, this right
That's what
here,
they changed.
yeah, this is very, very specific though. It says, what's the ruling under the following situation? A player putts too strongly and his ball strikes the flag stick, which has been removed by someone in his match or group and placed on the ground behind the hole. It says the answer is A, the player incurs a penalty of loss of hole in match play or two strokes in stroke play under 17.3A.
But that's not what we're asking. We're asking, what if somebody runs over and picks it up so it doesn't hit? And that's when they changed it.
Sure, on that one, if that rule didn't exist, especially on a sharply slanted green, you could just have the flag stick laid behind the hole and putt into it.
Yeah,
And so this does, just like the general theory of the rule, it's two strokes, because that's a better detriment than you get if you didn't breach the rule. A stronger detriment.
It's gonna be, I think it's in 16.
I think it's in 16.
yeah, 17 under flag stick, isn't it?
Yeah, 17. Possibly.
I don't know where it'd be in 16. It's the only thing I see, 17.3.3. You don't see any other decision. Foots, dogs, clubs. Okay.
Someday we're gonna ask Siri, right? We're not gonna need a book.
But this one is off the green.
Yeah,
Did you see that one time?
17-2. Yeah, but that's off the green.
That's off the green.
I mean, I guess the way that I see it is that if it has a reasonable possibility to influence the movement of the ball, I think it's a penalty.
No, that's when they changed it. I'm telling you that I know
Right.
that they, because you used to, oh, don't pick it up, don't touch, because it would be a penalty if you did. And at least 2 years ago, they changed that.
Yes.
that you could move it if the ball was gonna hit it.
You talking about a ball in motion.
Ball in
Ball
motion,
in motion.
flag stick's laying on the green, it's gonna hit the flag, it's gonna hit it, which was a penalty.
Another player.
And another player picks it up so that it doesn't hit it. That used to be a penalty, but now it's not. Just can't find it.
Yeah, I just don't know what it'd be covered in.
It's gotta be a decision.
24-1. That says it is. It's not removed.
Okay.
I mean, that's, yeah, 24-1.
The ball is in motion or obstruction might influence the movement of the ball other than equipment of any player or the flag stick when attended. Removed or held up must not be moved.
But it's not being attended, is
So I
that,
think
is the flag stick?
it's been removed. So I would say you can move.
Okay, so the ball in motion.
That's deliberately deflected.
Rather than put it on the back. Yeah, so I think that's it, Tony. So right, so 24-1, it's near the bottom, right above the note. So when a ball is in motion, an obstruction that might influence the movement of the ball, other than equipment of any player or the flag stick when attended, removed, so removed is a key word there, or held up,
Must not be moved.
So
I'll do it
since it's removed, it can be moved and there's no penalty.
Okay.
Right, because it's not no longer attended. I know it was clearer than that.
Other than equipment.
Right.
Or the flag stick when removed. So imagine the flag stick when removed, that's what the situation we're looking at.
It'd be a lot easier now, isn't it?
Sure, once they change it, it's gonna be much easier. Yeah.
So that's a good find there, Tommy.
Comes a new motion.
So further down, it mentioned something about hitting the flag stick when it has been removed and it's lying on the green.
So, yeah, well, I'll just read through here. So number 2, ball deliberately deflected or stopped by attendant. So if the player's ball in motion after a stroke is deliberately deflected or stopped by the person attending the flag stick, when a penalty applies, if that attendant is a player or a player's caddy, that player gets the general penalty for 2 strokes. This includes when a player or a caddy attending the flag stick deliberately fails to prevent the ball from being deflected or stopped, such as deliberately failing to move out of the way or of the ball or to remove the flag stick from the movement.
Yeah, no wonder they need to be revising.
Well, now that's kind of odd because there it's saying he's deliberately, if he's in attendance of the flag stick, if he's holding the stick and it's in the hole, if he fails to move it, it's deliberate.
That's a penalty.
If the player
If he lays it down on the ground and then they leave.
No.
So this entails that the person actually deflects the ball or stops it, right? Because it says after the ball in motion after a stroke is deliberately deflected or stopped. So if the person just doesn't move the flag, it's okay. But if they deliberately leave the flag in there and hits it, then the penalty is going to be.
But there's no penalty for hitting it.
When you say tend the flag, I think that is, it has to be removed. Because the ball hits it, because
He deliberately left it in there to get it back.
you did deliberately leave it in, it did hit it. And I think you'd have to say, no, I want it left in for it to stay in and not be a penalty.
You're asking to have it left in and unattended.
Right. Or if you're asking to have it attended, that means you're asking to have it removed.
Well, I think the way that I see it is that if I ask you, Tony, to tend the flag, and then we're playing a match, and you see my ball going right at the stick, and you just say, I'm gonna get this guy a penalty and leave it in there.
Oh, then I don't think it would be.
That's the way that I view that statement.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes to.
You're not the player of the catch.
Right, to the other person.
Well, it goes either way. If you deliberately either remove it when you're asked not to, or if you leave it in when you're asked to take it out.
Right.
Either way, you deliberately tried to influence the movement of the ball.
Right.
Up from the ball.
Well, that's the rule of thumb, so if I ask to have it attended, I mean, after I hit the ball, I'm gonna take it out.
And then if you don't, because you deliberately decided not to, then you kind of get a person flag stick. But if it gets stuck or whatever, then it's gonna. Well,
If it's your
not-
caddy,
deliberate.
it's on
Now,
you.
now it's
That's
not.
accidental.
Yeah.
And if it's your caddy, it's on you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess in that case, it's not gonna be deliberate, right? It's just an accident. So you would be in. Right? I mean, if you told me, and I'm just saying this for my own understanding, so if you told me to kind of flag, and I tried to yank it out and I couldn't get it to come out, and it hits the flag, there's still no penalty under the 2019 because I didn't deliberately try to leave it in there. Right?
Yeah.
And then since there's no
Yeah,
penalty,
you're saying
The
it's
next part is
it's hung in the liner?
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
yeah, and so as we had just said, so where the ball must be played from. So no matter who deliberately deflected or stopped the player's ball, the player must not play the ball from where it comes to rest. Instead, the player must estimate the spot where the ball would have come to rest if not deliberately deflected or stopped, and take release under
Yes,
rule.
just like if somebody deliberately stops a ball in the crowd, deliberately stops it, they estimate where it would have ended up. They
Right.
play from there.
Sure.
That would depend on whether it was 20 yards off the tee or 250 yards off the tee.
And then it's, how are we determining that?
Oh,
And
the tree
there's
back in the
there's definitely a lot of judgment there, but I think it is a change because under the current rules, if it's on the putting green, this happens, it's canceled.
18 is it, right?
So, this is
Now.
saying,
Right?
now,
Now it is.
2018, right, but in 2019, it's saying that regardless of, how it was delivered or where it happened, you're gonna estimate where it would have ended up. So if the ball is tracking at the hole,
Fill her down,
right, and it's just gonna be.
Depending on the
it was-
speed.
it was
What about the example where the guy put his ball down on the green at the Masters and from at rest it rolled into the creek?
Yeah, well, number 13.
Yeah, is he gonna, how does he estimate it? If it gets to that point, does he have to assume it would go in the water? Or can he say, well, my reasonable judgment is 3 inches this way and it's safe?
But no.
If it's at rest, if you mark it,
If it's at rest and it's marked, you just put it back.
place it as near as close to where it was
In
in
2019.
2019.
Say that again.
If you mark the ball
Yes.
in 2019,
Yes.
you mark the ball, pick it up, clean it, put it back down, pick up your coin and it rolls.
Yeah, I
And it
got
rolls
that.
into the water, you replace it to where it was.
No,
Okay, you
but
got-
talking about a
Where's
different
possible? Talk
situation,
about
we're
the
talking
flag
about
stick.
where it's deflected. You have to estimate where it would have gone, but for the deflection. If it would have
That's
gone
intentional.
into that area,
That's intentional, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
an intentional stop as opposed to hitting somebody's ball accidental.
Right.
You play from where it is.
Yeah, accidental, you're still gonna play as live. So I think it's here, and I mean, this is not just for flag stick, but it's
It
here.
says deliberate.
If it's accidentally, so I guess the key takeaway here is if it's an accident, you're gonna play the ball as it lies. If it's intentional or it's deliberate, then you're gonna estimate where it would have came to us.
So if you have a downhill 3-foot putt and the greens are running at about 14, and there's no way to stop the ball in your mind, and you use the flag stick as a backstop, just leave it in, don't tend it. And the ball hits it, what do you do?
Play it as it lies.
Yeah, to play it as a live.
Now or
The new-
2019.
new rules?
Well, you know it's intentional.
Well, yeah, okay, I see.
I mean, it was intentional.
I mean,
There's no way
so-
to separate emotionals.
If it was intentional, you would have made the putt.
No, it's not intentional because the player is allowed to leave the flag stick in the hole.
Right.
So they're allowed that choice before they make the stroke.
Yeah,
But I'm serious, Mike, your intent would be to make the putt, not to see how hard you could hit the flag
Just
stick.
leave it on.
Yeah, you can leave it in.
Okay, I'm just, the only way to stop that ball before going in the creek is to hit that.
If you
flag.
if you laid it
Always
down
to make a
knowing
putt.
that, hey, you know, if I hit this a little fast, then you know, that's a little bit different.
So you play it where it lies,
Right.
after it hits the flag stick.
Right. And if you want to lay it down in front of the water, you just you have your caddy do it and then plead ignorance when you're asked about it. Right. Yeah.
God, if he directed his caddy to put it there, wouldn't you get him under 1-2?
Yeah. I was
Today,
for sure.
yeah.
I think if the player directed their caddy to do that, even in 2019. There would be a penalty. I'm not sure exactly what rule it's going to be under, but that there would definitely be intent there. But if the caddy said, I just did it and he never told me, who are we to say that that's not true? I mean, you might think it's quite convenient that they put the flag there, but it comes down to if there was verbal direction, then there's obvious intent. So. All right. Still on 13. Ball overhanging the hole, resting against the flag stick. So here, still the same. So the player's ball is overhanging the hole. So this was in the putting green rule, and now is in this. Well, I guess it's still in the putting green rule, but it's kind of combined with the flag stick, so to speak. Ball overhanging hole and then resting against flag stick were two separate rules. Now they're in one. So as it's still the case now, the player has a reasonable time. If the ball is overhanging the hole, they have a reasonable time to get to the hole, and then 10 seconds once they get to the hole. And then if the ball is either, if it stays on the edge, then it's deemed to be at rest. If it falls in the hole, it's deemed to be hold within that 10 seconds. And afterwards, if it fell in after those 10 seconds, the ball would be deemed hold and there'd be a one-stroke penalty, which is what it says here. If the ball then falls into the hole before it is played, the player has hold out with the previous stroke, but must add one penalty stroke. And that's a good example. You see the one penalty stroke there to the hole. A little slight change here in terms of the definition of hold. When the ball is resting against the flag stick, it's still going to be the case of the player. The player still has the option to move the flag stick. And have the ball go down below the hole, but the definition of hold is a little bit different. So before it was at rest and below the level of the ground, right, or whatever. But now it's the entire ball is below. Well, not now. In 2019, the definition of hold is the entire ball is below the surface of the putting green. So now it doesn't necessarily have to be at rest in the bottom of the cup.
I was wondering about that.
There
because,
was a
people,
decision
like,
in there
got a
where
hold
a
of
guy
one
put his
where they
hand
just
in
pull
there.
the ball out, they
You
don't
put
take
it,
the lights
and it's still
But so
rolling
it
around,
really isn't
and you
at
pick
the
it
bottom.
up before it rests. There was a decision in there.
Yeah.
Is that considered holding?
As long as it was below, the whole ball was below the surface.
But it said it had to be at rest, right? So if you putt, you got a 1 foot putt, you tap it and it's rolling around and you grab it out of the
But it
bottom.
says the ball's assumed to be at rest
Right.
down there as long as the ball didn't bounce back out.
Right, but there was a decision.
Yeah.
Addressing it.
Yeah.
Which was crazy.
Probably after Tiger made that putt at the PGA.
A lot of crazy
right when it went
rules.
in the hole.
Ah.
Now some guy was sitting on his couch was like, that ball wasn't at rest. I don't know.
I think it's somebody that lost a
Damn, fishing.
Yeah, sure.
because the ball is still rolling around.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to
That'd be a lawyer.
be a fan.
Oh.
All right, 14 here. Lifting and returning the ball to play. So let's see here. Marking, lifting, and cleaning the ball. So, sorry, I'm on the wrong page, aren't I? Yes. My fault. No, no. We're good. Sorry about that. Okay. How to mark a spot of a ball if you lift and replace? Here. Basically, it's just saying that the player needs to mark it before lifting it, and if they don't, there's going to be a once-over penalty provided they play from the right place. No changes from today. In terms of who may lift the ball, it still remains the same. So the player, anyone the player authorized may lift it. And when the ball, I don't know if this is the exact same as it is now, but also when the ball arrives on the putting green, the player's caddy may lift the ball without the player's authorization. I think that is new too. And then if the player's caddy lifts the ball without authorization when it lies anywhere other than the putting green, the player must add 1 point to the vote. And here in cleaning the ball, now it just kind of identifies these situations when you cannot clean the ball, which is nice. And then so we still have it if it's it's not unfit for play anymore, but see if it's cut or cracked, I guess is the new terminology to identify it. So for identification purposes, because it interferes with play, which we still have today, and cleaning is not allowed in that case. Or to lift to see it if it's in a condition where relief is allowed. So the two current situations that fall under that are an embedded ball rule and to see if it's in a Berlin animal hole, which now will be an animal hole in 2019.
True.
So really nothing's changed there. They just have kind of listed all of them out because I believe before to lift to see if it was in the condition where relief allowed was not in the actual rule. It was elsewhere.
So it's still the same there. If you pick your ball up and throw it from the green into the water,
Right.
you miss your caddy.
Yeah, and that was a question I had. I think where was I? Where did I? Yeah, so here when a ball must be replaced after it was lifted or removed, the original ball must be used. It says an exception, so when the original ball cannot be recovered with reasonable effort and in a few seconds, so long as the player did not deliberately cause that to happen. So, my question when I was reading this was, well, if Ian Poulter throws it to his caddy and it goes in the water, I mean, did he deliberately? I guess he didn't deliberately. I guess he did cause it to happen, but
He did, but it's accidental. The caddy didn't.
Right. So in that case,
If he turned and threw it in the water and not at his caddy,
right.
that would be one thing. But throwing it to his caddy, assuming he's going to catch it and clean it,
So
is
in
an
that
act,
case-
but not deliberate.
So in that case, you would read it as no penalty.
No
Whereas
penalty.
now the caddy had to dive into the water to get the ball.
Exactly.
It's a good thing you get rid of that.
Kyle, are they have the are they going to have additional guidance on ball markers and how to mark the ball? Have you heard anything about that thing?
Yeah, it said here.
That was just
It's,
it's in the handbook.
Handbook. It said guidance. Now we haven't seen how it is, but I'm guessing it's going to be pretty much exactly what it what the decision is now. It basically says that you can use any object, so to speak, except for something natural, right? Like a natural mark or whatever.
Well, yeah, previously you could use a
Guidance
natural.
suggests recommended, not.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Correct.
Previously, we could use a natural mark. Well, today we can use a natural marker. Right? After 2019, we can't.
Is the putter head a natural marker? An artificial object?
That
The
one,
putter head.
That one is specifically
know
allowed in the rules. Yes.
Yep. You can stand there, turn your putter sideways, and pick the ball up and clean it. And put it
Yeah,
back
there's a decision.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I'm guessing that they'll continue that and they'll probably pull that exact. But
It says artificial object used to mark the ball to be lifted, such as a coin, T-coin, object made to be a ball marker or other item of equipment, which I would call your putters, your equipment, so you can still use that.
Back to Ian Poulter here from you're suggesting new rules that if I throw you the ball and it goes in the water, I'm not gonna be penalized?
If it's accidental.
That was a question that I had. I mean, I guess, now that I'm reading this.
Well,
I
part of
think
me
that's
throwing the
case.
ball is accidental.
Well, it's
You're not
a
intending to throw it in the water,
deliberate
you're
act,
intending to toss it
right?
to your caddy.
You're throwing it to your caddy is a deliberate act. The
Yeah.
fact that he accidentally missed it,
It says that here?
Yeah, it says so long as the player did not deliberately cause that to happen. So
Cause
Tom's,
what to happen?
Well,
I did cause it, I caused the ball to go in the water.
You- it wasn't your intent. Your intent was to throw it to
Your
your.
deliberate action was not to
Different
throw it on.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
but
difference
deliberate
between deliberate
is the word.
or
Say
unintentional.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it very
You're not
specifically says do not deliberately cause that.
So you were.
It wasn't your
intending
intent to throw it in the water, right? You threw it to your caddy and he was gonna catch it and clean it. He's just a lousy, he should never play baseball.
If you're
Or he's not very
size
good.
of rain and you threw it into the water, I'd say that's deliberate. If he was standing there and you threw it to him and he dropped it and it rolled in and went straight down and you can't get it, I'd call that accident.
yeah, I mean, I don't
I think it's a game more friendly.
Tom's example of,
That's
if the
true.
player,
If it's just.
misreads the punt, marks it and chucks it in the water.
Chucks it in the
that's-
water.
That's different. And even if his caddy was standing there and he threw it over his head, I mean, that's still not, that's still.
I think it's, you should be able to tell the difference between it.
Yeah.
You kind of have it on 16, right? Where that could happen.
Yeah, the way,
Anywhere else.
sure, if you're standing in the wrong location, if you're in the front left of that green and your caddy happens to be standing over on the right by the cusp, so you toss it at him, it goes in the water, yeah, I could see that happening. But Lee, 16 on the
Some guy in the
south.
audience go diving into the water to find the ball for him.
Right.
And once in a while, he come up with it.
That'd be like 12, if the guy is way over to the left on 12, right? His caddy's not in the right position. He tosses the ball, goes back in the water body. You've got some locations there that would do it on the north course too.
All right, and then this last thing just talks about who may replace it. So the player may always replace the ball, or the person that lifted it or moved it can replace it. That's what he's saying. And this is just saying if the player plays a ball that was replaced by someone not allowed to, the player must add one penalty stroke. Now, someone that's not allowed to replace it could put it back, but then if they fix it before they played the shot, it's okay. It's just when they hit that shot, and they just want to lose that penalty.
So you still kind of have the eraser rule.
I haven't seen it anymore yet, but.
The eraser rule, it's in here. Yeah, I think it's 14. I think it's 14.4. If I remember it correct, but I could be wrong. Hopefully we'll get to it next time. All
People are gonna be on the green.
right, spot on which ball is replaced. So when a ball is lifted, removed, and the rule requires it to be replaced, the ball must be replaced on its original spot. No changes here. Right, and then now where you talked about this a little bit earlier with the bunker, and talk about the specific spot or a situation, but it's still going to apply if the lie was altered and the ball's in the sand. We're going to recreate the lie, and then we're going to try to put the ball back in the spot closest as possible to that original lie where we can recreate the lie. And then if the ball was completely covered, as it is today in the rules, the player may leave a small part of the ball visible if it had been completely covered by sand. So if the ball anywhere other than the sand, if the original lie was altered, the ball, when the ball was at rest anywhere other than in the sand, the player must replace the ball by placing it on the nearest spot, not near the hole, with a lie most similar to the original lie. That is, this is probably going to change, but within 20 inches from its original spot. So that could be, and I'm not sure. I believe right now it's you try to you find the closest closest spot, whereas this is giving you a little bit more latitude. So I'm not sure if they're gonna. They may revert back to as close as possible instead of one club length, but But it does need to stay in the same area of the course. So you couldn't put it, it could be in the fairway and you couldn't put it in a bunker.
Or from fairway to bunker, or fairway to rough.
You could go from fairway to rough. That's still part of the same course.
Because the only place in the current rules that differentiates between fairway and rough is a closely mown area for an embedded ball.
Embedded ball.
And now the new definition of the general area is the same, that you're dropping in the rough or in the fairway, they're the same thing.
Or you can have
The
a
general
local
area.
rule that still keeps it into
In the same condition.
in the closely known area.
For
They
embedded
kind of
ball,
flip-flop
For an
that
embedded
rule,
ball,
but
embedded
the
ball.
UK.
Yeah, by default over there, you don't get relief, whereas here you do by default.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
There's no difference in the definition.
Yeah.
right.
All right, so this one here, what to do if the ball doesn't stay on the same spot. It's again, it's same as it always has been. So we're just gonna try to find that nearest spot as possible. We're gonna keep moving it around until we find that spot. We talked about this earlier. Ball or ball marker move while replacing. If the ball or ball marker is accidentally moved while replacing the ball, there's no penalty, and the ball or ball marker must be replaced. Then dropping here, so look at the dropping. So dropping is obviously going to be different. We talked about that last week, and we talked about it many times before. But dropping will be different in terms of they can drop anywhere or any distance as long as it's above the ground without it touching any growing thing or other natural or artificial object. And it's recommended that they let go of the ball so that it falls through the air before coming to rest. Sorry, it's not recommended. The player must have the ball go or fall through the air before coming to rest. And I don't envision that they change this dropping procedure, even though they may be going back to 1 club length and 2 club lengths. I think that they like this dropping feature because it limits the redrops and confusion around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go to my computer, the window where you have all your drives and stuff. Okay, so at the top in the address bar, put in /ATS ATX.
There we go. I don't think he was talking to me. All right. The player must drop the ball, and nothing's changed there. Okay, and let me see. Here we still have the same thing. If the ball was dropped incorrectly, just like we do today, if the player doesn't have their arm extended out, they drop it like here. It's a 1-stroke penalty for procedure breach. So that will be the same.
Say again?
If a player today, if they drop
today.
it, if they drop it incorrectly, there's a 1-stroke procedure.
Right, okay.
In 2019, correct. If you don't correct it in 2019, that will be the case. Unless you drop it and you're holding it like on the ground or it's touching the grass and you drop it, then you would get that 1-stroke penalty.
You're allowed to correct that, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, you're allowed to correct it as long as you.
Junior tournaments.
As long as you fix it before you hit the shot. Yeah.
It's 14-5.
14-5.
The figuring it's not going to work if you drop it like this.
Yeah. All right. So here this says that the ball must be dropped and played from the relief area. So the ball must be dropped in, come to rest in, and be played from the relief area. So the way that they define this relief area now is either that 20 inches or 80 inches. That is probably going to change in how they define that, but that's what they mean when they talk about this relief area. So if the ball is dropped outside the relief area or comes to rest outside the relief area, it must be lifted and dropped again. So we'll still have situations where we need to redrop. It's not completely eliminating that.
So what they say with it, depending on what the actual thing will be, there's no more rolling. Is that what it's saying?
Yeah.
It's
The 2
it's
club
saying that
roll out
it
means-
needs to stay in there.
Yeah, it has to stay in the air.
So
I like that.
So now you won't have
Keeps it in the same
that extra 2 club lengths
Right.
from where it hits the ground. Assuming that they stay with this, which I think they want to stay with this. But
Well, it depends. And 80 inch,
if you're
the
dropping
person's
it,
relief was 80
it
inches,
should- it
it
should
was
roll
from
in
the
the
end,
end.
the hazard out to the fairways. If the edge of the fairway ran along the water hazard, and your lateral relief was 2 club lengths, and it got you to the fairway, that's the difference in changing condition. You're not in the hazard, you're not in the rough.
Or a sprinkler head, right on the edge of the fairway in the rough.
Yeah.
Right, you get 20 inches.
You get relief from the head, yeah.
All right, and then here just penalty statement here. So making a stroke at a ball that was dropped outside the relief area but came to rest in the relief area, it's just a 1-stroke penalty because the player technically played from the right place. However, if they make a stroke at a ball that came to rest outside the relief area, then they're going to get that general penalty or the 2-stroke penalty. All right, here, so yeah.
If you drop the ball outside the relief area and it bounces back into the relief area, then you're supposed to drop it?
Correct, yes. Yeah, so it has to land in that relief area and then stay in that relief area. And that's 2019. Now it's a little bit different. Now it still needs to hit inside that 1 or 2 club length, but now it can roll outside of that. But under the new rules, it has to hit there and has to stay there in that relief area.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's why
Good
you have
question.
that 1-inch drop.
All right, so here's one thing I said wrong last week. I'm pretty positive, but so here a drop ball accidentally hits anyone or anything. If a drop ball accidentally hits any person, equipment, or other object before coming to rest, there's no penalty. And
Oh, yeah, because
and then if the ball comes to rest in the relief area, it must be played as it lies. If the ball comes to rest outside the relief area, it must be dropped again. So if you dropped it and hit your foot, but it came to rest in the relief area, you play it as it lies. Whereas today, if it hits your equipment or your body, you have to redrop. So drop ball deliberately deflected or stopped. So when any ball is in motion after being dropped in the relief area, the player who dropped it or any other player must not deliberately deflect or stop the ball to affect where it may come to rest. If any player does so, he or she gets a general penalty. In stroke play, the player who is taking relief must drop the ball again, no matter where it came to rest or would have come to rest. So when I was reading this, I was thinking, well, what if they're trying to stop it from going into the water hazard? Well, they have an exception here. So if the player deliberately deflects or stops a drop ball in motion outside the relief area when there is no reasonable chance it will return and come to rest in the relief area, there's no penalty. So if the player is catching the ball and preventing it from going back into the penalty area, there's not a penalty for deliberately stopping or deflecting that ball.
Or
As
with
long
the
as-
roll thing, if it's gonna roll down the hill, and it's not gonna stay in the relief area.
Right,
you could
right.
stop it, too.
Provided that there's that certainty that it's not going to come back. And then a lot of times you'll see if the ball hits a cart path, you might not know which way it's going to bounce. It may end up coming back into an area of play. All right. So what to do when the drop ball comes to rest outside the relief area? You're gonna drop the ball again, and there's not a limit to how many times you drop. You just keep dropping until you
Really?
Until you drop.
Yeah.
There's no 2 times in place that.
no.
You better hope that's not a very large slope.
No, there is one exception. So what to do when the drop ball will not stay in the relief area? In unusual situations, the drop ball may not stay in the relief area despite the player's repeated attempts under the procedure above. If this happens, then it is reasonable to conclude that a drop ball will not come to rest in the relief area no matter where and how the ball is dropped. The player must place the ball on and play it from a spot chosen by the player that is anywhere in the relief area. If the placed ball does not stay at rest on the spot chosen, the player must apply Rule 14-2E, which is 14-2E. What to do if the ball does not stay on the spot, and they try to find the spot as close as possible to that and keep moving it around. So only the player may place the ball under this rule. No one else, including the caddy, may do it for the player. So in that situation where you're not able to get it to get it to stop it, you are able to not have to drop it and place it. But it should be very rare now, given that you can drop a centimeter above the grass, so to speak. But they do have the option in there if it comes up. And then the other, I think, I just want to read too. I think there was. Oh, here's an important change here. Just another thing to add. So, when the player is dropping it again, the player should make all reasonable efforts to drop the ball so that it will come to rest in the relief area, such as dropping from the lowest possible height and dropping in different places if necessary, such as trying to use the middle or the opposite side of the relief area. So even if the player is sitting there and saying, stubbornly dropping the ball up here, they have to actually try to drop from just above the grass in order to get it in play. So they can't, basically get to place it by just keeping the drop as
You have to make a
high.
good faith effort.
Exactly. All right, and then as we have in today, when the ball is back in play, it's back in play as soon as it's been replaced, dropped, or placed, with the intent for it to be played. Right, so if it, if you didn't mean to drop it and it just kind of fell out of your hand or whatever, the ball's not play.
Yeah, but the next statement's important.
And then this applies whether the original ball or the substituted ball is used and whether the ball is in the right place or the wrong place. And that comes up quite, I don't want to say frequently, but it does happen.
It doesn't matter if it's in the wrong place, it's in play.
And then a replaced ball is even in play, or is in play even if the ball marker has not been removed. So that's still the same.
So if your ball's in the wrong
It
place,
better be
are
in
you
here.
also going to be getting a penalty from playing from the wrong place?
It's just a one-stroke penalty.
If I'm dropping a ball, if I'm taking relief from a cart path, and it's not the nearest point of relief, but I play it, and the ball's now in play, and I play from that spot, isn't that from the wrong place?
Mm-hmm.
So you two-stroke penalty.
All right, then so 14-5 is our new eraser rule starting in 2019. So correcting mistake made in taking relief. So when the ball in play has been substituted, placed, dropped, replaced by a wrong person in a wrong place, or by using procedures not allowed under the rules, the player may lift the ball without penalty and correct the mistake. But this is only allowed before the ball has been played. So once that ball has been played, it's set in stone. Set in stone. We can't do anything
Yeah, you
about
take
it.
the penalty and move on.
Right.
So this is
20.6. 13.5 is now 20.6.
All right, and this right here is something that makes a lot. It makes a lot more sense to me. It makes it a lot clearer. I think it's the same, but it makes it a lot clearer. So when you're able to change relief and options and when you're not. And so the relief rule and relief option to be used when correcting the mistake depends on whether the ball lifted under rule, whatever, had been dropped or placed under the rule that the player was allowed to use. So when the player has used the relief rule and the relief option that were allowed, the player must correctly take relief using that same rule and relief option. Whereas if the player had used a relief rule or relief option that was not allowed, the player may take relief under any rule or relief option that applies to his or her situation.
And if there is none that applies to his specific situation, he dropped in the wrong place, took the proper relief.
So what will be?
What would be the penalty?
Wouldn't it just be 2 strokes for
It's
hitting from
just-
the wrong place?
It's just 2 strokes from playing from the wrong place,
Then you're off and running.
unless it's,
Serious
you know, serious breach.
So I think this makes it a little bit clearer in terms of when, you know, when they're stuck using a certain relief option that they've proceeded under, and when they have the option to switch out. So if they've taken their, I don't want to say 2 club links, but if they went on their line back, or what is it called now? Back. Anyways, if they
Back on line. Back on the line.
Back in line.
Back on the line. Back on the line relief, and they drop it, and it rolls outside the relief area. You know, they can redrop without penalty, but they can't go back and say, well, now I want to take 2 club links. Whereas if they took 3 club links and they thought 3 club links was the rule, if they drop that, then they could say, oh, I want to go on a back line or whatever, because that 3 club links wasn't an actual option.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, making next stroke from where the previous stroke was made.
Stroke distance.
Yeah, so pretty much just you know, stroke distance where you have to go back to where you played maybe because the stroke got canceled or something like that. But this is the player must put a ball in play, or how the player must put a ball in play depends on the area of the course where the previous stroke was made. So in all situations, the player may use the original ball or substitute another ball. So if the ball was made from the team area, the player may go back to the tee and tee it up anywhere inside the team area. If it was made from the general area, the penalty area, or the bunker, the original ball or substitute ball must be dropped and played from this relief area. So no changes there. And then if the stroke was made from the putting green, again, no changes, we place that back there. So that still stays the same. Playing from the wrong place. So it looks like they're going to have in the handbook here a list of situations where a ball is being played from the wrong place. So that would be nice to have a quick reference of that. And basically, anytime they play from the wrong place, it's going to be two penalty strokes. And then here it says that if the player only gets 2 penalty strokes if he or she had also incorrectly substituted the ball that was played from the wrong place, or breached a rule involving a related 1-stroke penalty, such as when the ball played from the wrong place was replaced, dropped, or placed in the wrong way, or by a wrong person, then the 1-stroke penalty does not apply.
CO 2 plus 1 equals 2.
Exactly. The 2 plus 1 equals 2. All right, so how to complete a hole after playing from the wrong place. So the player has to decide whether to play out the hole with the ball played from the wrong place or to correct the mistake by playing from the right place. In stroke play, what a player does next depends on whether it was a serious breach. So that there's no change here. Now and then the way that we determine what is significant breach or not, or a serious breach, is whether the player gained a significant advantage by playing from the wrong place. So if it's not a serious breach, the player is going to continue to play out with the ball played from the wrong place, take the 2-stroke penalty. If it's a serious breach, the player is still going to get that 2-stroke penalty, but they have to go back and fix it. And they need to do it just like we did today before they hit a tee shot on the next hole, or in the case of the last hole, before they walk off the green. Now, one slight change here, we don't, to my knowledge, you don't have rule 3-3 in these new rules, so.
There is one somewhere.
Is there?
It's not 3-3.
Okay.
There is one for playing a second ball.
I think so, yeah.
It's, so, and here it's listed, it's listed out that players should play the second ball. So if the player is uncertain whether the breach is serious, the player should play out the hole with both the original ball, and play the ball from their own, hold out with both the original ball and the ball played,
In the right place.
in the right place. So one key change here, though, is that when a player does this, place two balls, if the player tries to correct the mistake by playing the ball from the right place under the rules, the player must report the facts to the committee before returning the scorecard. And then the change here, that this applies whether the player played out the hole with only that ball or with two balls. So any time that the player plays from the wrong place, they're going to have to notify the committee. And if the player doesn't do that, then they're going to be disqualified.
That's going to be crazy.
Yeah. So, well, I just want to read this again to make sure okay. So it looks like if a player tries to correct a mistake by playing the ball from the right place, so basically it would mean if they actually go back to correct it, they need to notify the committee because that player may be wrong, and if they don't play out both balls, we need to know so we can give them the right penalty for moving the ball and going to play from another wrong place.
So the only reason why you wouldn't have to tell the community is if you just decide to take the 2-stroke penalty, but unless your competitor has a thought that it might be a serious breach, that'd be the only situation you would have to talk about it, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't have to talk to the committee if you just played the ball from the wrong place and just kept playing it.
Unless if you and I were playing and I said, I think you committed a serious breach.
Yeah, then you would bring it up to the committee, but I don't think a player is obligated to talk to the committee in that case. But as a fellow competitor, it's not fellow competitor anymore, but as another player out there, yeah, I mean you would bring it up, maybe bring it up in the rules or the scoring time. Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's kind of harsh that they're going to disqualify a player, whereas I think now it's only DQ if they. Or I think it's. Let me just make sure I wrote this down.
That's the trick. Easiest way to do it.
Yeah, I don't. Let's see. Serious breach. I did write it down. Yeah, it is. So it's a change. I'd be interested to see it. I mean, there's going to be situations where they're not going to let someone know what happened, or someone that's playing the group is going to say, "Oh yeah, here's how you do it," and we're not going to find out about it
Exactly.
until after the fact.
And they're going to come in and report it, and they'll be considered a serious breaches because they didn't play two balls in DCQ.
All right.
So you should really play two balls.
I'm sorry.
Or you should make sure that your opponent doesn't think that it's a serious breach.
Well, yeah, but the point of it is, I think just like now, when you're in a stroke play competition, everybody's playing the same course.
Sure.
If somebody is going to get us, it's like not putting out a 2-inch putt. You really don't know that they made that putt. If they played from a markedly different position, then their score really can't be compared to the scores of all their fellow competitors.
You're still protecting the field.
You're still protecting the field. That's exactly right. So, and that's where the committee has to say, all right, if you were 2 inches outside the area, you really didn't get a significant advantage. If you moved it 3 feet and there's no longer a bunker in front of you, now you did get a serious advantage. It's a matter of discretion, but it has to go to the committee. Otherwise, you haven't matched apples with apples.
But if it's 3 foot sideways and not 3 foot forward,
I mean,
Is it a serious?
It just depends.
Yeah.
Got it all from behind a tree.
Depends.
Sure.
That's a new instruction.
So here, this kind of just runs through the committee's, I guess, penalty statement or how, how they're going to determine it, what the player's score is. So if there's no serious breach, the score with the original ball played from the wrong place counts. The player must add 2 penalty strokes. If the player did not hold out with the original ball, the player is disqualified. So this is what they're, we find out about this afterwards, let's say, or in the scoring time. If the second ball was played, all strokes made with that ball and any penalty strokes that that player got solely by playing that ball are disregarded. If there's a serious breach, the score with the ball played to correct the mistake of playing it from the wrong place counts, including all strokes taken by the player before playing the original ball from the wrong place. And the player must add 2 penalty strokes to the score with that ball. The stroke made in playing the original ball from the wrong place and any further strokes made in continuing to play that ball, including any penalty strokes solely from playing that ball, are disregarded. Now, if the ball played to correct the mistake was also played from the wrong place, then if the committee finds out this was not a serious breach, the player must add 2 more penalty strokes, making a total of 4 penalty strokes in all. And then if the committee finds out that this was a serious breach, the player is disqualified.
Well, count 20.1C is 3-3.
20, okay.
20-1
So that's
C3.
20.1C and it's equal to 3-3.
Okay. That's good to know. It's
Playing 2 balls.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna stop there for today. So we'll finish up with the 2019, and next week we'll get back to reality a little bit. Probably next week we'll do a good chunk of going over some practice tests, and the reason that we're gonna do that is just to kind of get a little bit of experience, but also I don't know if you guys remember when the teachers in school, they make the class watch a movie or do something else because they have some other stuff to get done. So next week we have our first gym training seminar series. So I got quite a bit to do to get ready for that. And so just to be frankly honest with you guys, I'm not gonna have a ton of time to put into the presentation. So we're gonna spend a good chunk of it going over the practice tests, but also just getting reacclimated to the 2018 rules. Okay, fair enough. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kyle. Good job, Kyle. Good job.
We could have said that we're going to be the guinea pigs for his gin presentation.